The air in the Vixthalier atrium tasted like copper and rainwater. It was a pleasant taste, if you were used to it. Ambassador Jinsu was still getting used to it. He stood very still, his hands clasped loosely behind his back. He watched the light from the 2 moons outside. It came through the ceiling, which was not glass, but a living crystal. The light broke into colors that danced on the floor like spilled paint. This place was called the Garden of Harmonious Shadow. It was a place for quiet talks. For Jinsu, it was a place of work. He had been here for 3 cycles now. 3 long cycles of talking, of smiling, of explaining. His suit was a simple gray color. It felt out of place among the shimmering plants and the Vixthalier themselves. The Vixthalier were beautiful, in a way. They looked like tall, slender trees made of dark, polished stone. But they were not stiff. Soft fronds, like feathers of light, grew from their arms and heads. These fronds moved slowly in the air, even when there was no breeze. They glowed from within with a soft, shifting light. The light was their voice. Different colors and patterns made different sounds. To Jinsu, it sounded like wind chimes. The being in front of him was the magistrate. It was the leader of this station. Its fronds were the color of deep ocean water, pulsing with flecks of silver. "Your words are smooth, Ambassador Jinsu," chimed the magistrate. The sound was gentle, musical, like the stones in a slow river. They wear away the hard edges of doubt. But the consortium sees the river's source. It comes from a mountain of fire. Jinsu gave a small nod. He had heard this before. The Galactic Consortium, the club of older spacefaring races, saw humans as children. Loud, dangerous children who had just found their way out of the house. They saw the wars in human history. They did not see the peace that came after. "A mountain can be cold for a long time, Magistrate," Jinsu said. His voice was calm. It was a voice made for listening. "The fire is deep inside. It is what forges the stone. It is not what we choose to build with. We offer to build a bridge. The quantum forge technology is the first plank. The quantum forge. That was the thing. It was a human invention. A machine that could make complex things from almost nothing. It could make medicine. It could make tools. It could also make weapons. That was the problem. Humans wanted to share it, with rules. The consortium wanted to control it, or bury it. The magistrate's fronds flushed a pale orange, a color of mild amusement. "A bridge must have 2 strong sides. Your side, forgive me, still shakes." "It is strong enough," Jinsu said. He did not smile. He simply stated it. "We have sent the data. Our last 5 generations have known no global conflict. Our energy is turned outward, to understanding, to building, and yet you bring soldiers on your ships." "We bring protectors," Jinsu corrected softly. "So do you. Your sentinel drones patrol your garden's outer walls. We do not call you warlike for it." A ripple of blue, like a quiet lake, moved through the magistrate's light. A sign of concession. The meeting was ending. They had danced around the point for hours. Nothing was agreed. Nothing was refused. It was how the Vixthalier worked. Everything was slow. Everything was indirect. "We will consider your data again, Ambassador," the magistrate chimed. "The consortium will meet in 30 cycles. We will speak then." "Thank you for your time and your light," Jinsu said, bowing his head slightly. It was the traditional farewell. He turned and walked across the glowing floor. His shoes made no sound. A young human aide, a woman named Sumin, fell into step beside him. She had been waiting by the arching doorway. Her face was tight with worry she was trying to hide. "Sir?" she whispered once they were in the smooth, organic hallway beyond the garden. "It is as we expected, Sumin," Jinsu said, his voice low. They are afraid. Fear makes people cautious. Even people who look like trees. He allowed himself a small, tired smile for her. We must be patient. We must show them over and over that we are what we say we are. It's just... The delays feel intentional, Suman said. She glanced at a passing Vix Thalir guard. The guard was a larger model, its fronds a still dark green. It did not look at them. Everything here is intentional, Jinsu said. The delay, the soft light, the sweet air. It is all a message. A message that they are old, and we are new. We must listen to the message behind their words. They reached the diplomatic quarters. The human section was a series of plain, white rooms. It felt empty after the living beauty of the Vix Thalir spaces. Jinsu went to his desk. He opened a small, physical notebook. He preferred to write by hand. He wrote a few lines about the meeting, about the magistrate's colors. He wrote a reminder to send a message to his daughter, Mina, on Earth. Today was her birthday. He had recorded a video message earlier, but he wanted to send a text. Something she could read when she woke up. He worked for an hour. Then he stood. He felt a deep tiredness, the kind that came from constant, careful attention. I am going for a walk, Suman, before the transport arrives. I need to clear my head. Sir, the security detail. She began. We'll follow at a distance, as always, he finished. It is protocol. I will stay in the public galleries. The view of the nebula is clarifying. He left the quarters. 2 human security officers, a man and a woman named Jay and Yuri, moved silently to follow him. He knew they were there. He was grateful for them, but he also needed to feel for a moment alone. Not an ambassador. Just a man in a strange and beautiful place. The public gallery was a long, curved hallway with a transparent wall looking out into space. The station orbited a gas giant. The planet filled half the view, a swirl of orange and cream. Beyond it, the Nilith Nebula painted the blackness with pink and purple light. It was stunning. Jinsu walked slowly, his hands behind his back again. He stopped to look. He thought about Mina. He thought about the birthday present he had sent. A real book made of paper about Earth's oceans. She loved the sea. He wished he could be there. He wished he could hear her laugh. A soft chime echoed in the gallery. It was the station's signal for a shift change. The gentle, colored lights in the floor dimmed slightly. The gallery was empty. It was a quiet time. Jinsu heard a different sound. A soft scrape, like stone on stone. It came from behind a support column that looked like a thick, woven root. He turned his head slightly. A Vix Thalir stepped out. But it was not one of the graceful diplomats. This one was bulkier. Its fronds were not the soft feathers of the leaders, but sharp, stiff spines. They glowed with a dim red light. A security model. An internal guard. Jinsu felt a coldness start in his stomach. This was wrong. Guards did not approach ambassadors alone in empty galleries. Protocol, can I help you? Jinsu asked, keeping his voice calm and loud. Loud enough for Jay and Yuri to hear. The guard did not chime or reply. It moved closer, surprisingly fast. Its long limb, ending in a sharp, pointed tip, rose. Jinsu's mind worked with perfect, terrible clarity. This was an attack. This was not a robbery. This was political. He had one job now. Not to fight. He could not win a fight. His job was to be a witness. To record. Every human diplomat had a neural implant. It helped with translation. It also recorded, constantly. It was a secret. A deep secret. It recorded sound, sight, and other data. It was supposed to be for historical record. For situations exactly like this, he focused his eyes on the guard, on the specific pattern of its hard, red-lit fronds. He noted the exact shade. He felt a hum in his bones, a very low frequency, a scanner-dampening field. They had planned this. The guard's sharp limb thrust forward. There was no energy blast, no loud sound, just a precise physical strike. Jinsu felt a hot, tearing pain in his chest. It was so sharp it felt cold. The world tilted. The beautiful nebula swam above him. He fell to the smooth floor. His body was not his own anymore. He could not move. He could only see. He saw the guard kneel beside him. It placed a heavy, ugly object in his limp hand. A Graddock ceremonial dagger. The Graddock were the rivals of the Vix the Lear. The message was obvious. Too obvious. The guard's red fronds pulsed once, brighter. It was a signal. Then it stood and walked away, its steps silent. The last thing Ambassador Jinsu saw was the pink light of the nebula. He thought of the ocean on a summer day. He thought of Mina's smile. Then the light faded, and there was only the quiet hum of the station, and the cold, and the dark. The news moved faster than light. It jumped through the quantum-entangled communication nodes that linked the galaxy. It was not a loud announcement. It was a ripple, a change in status. The official identification code for Ambassador Jinsu of Terra shifted from green to black. In diplomatic circles, on 1,000 ships and stations, people saw the change. They felt a cold stillness. On the Vix the Lear station, the human aides were found by their security. Suman was crying without sound, her hands pressed to her mouth. Jay and Yuri, the security officers, were pale with fury and shame. They had been locked in a service closet, their tools disabled by a network override. They had heard nothing. The Vix the Lear were a storm of soft light and chiming alarms. The magistrate appeared, its fronds a shocked, pale white. It offered condolences. It promised a full investigation. It gestured to the Graddock dagger clutched in the dead human's hand. The implication hung in the sweet metallic air. "We will find who did this terrible thing," the magistrate chimed, its notes trembling. Such a violation of peace. It must be answered. Captain Taiyang received the orders on his ship, the steady supply vessel Steadfast. He was a man with a kind face that had seen hard things. His orders were simple. Go to the Vix the Lear station. Retrieve the ambassador's body. Do nothing else. Say nothing else. The Steadfast was not a warship. It was a blocky, simple craft. It moved without hurry. When it docked at the beautiful crystal station, it looked like a lump of clay next to a gem. Taiyang put on his best uniform. He led a small team. They were all in simple black. They brought a plain, human-made coffin. It was a dark gray box, smooth and without decoration. The Vix the Lear had prepared a ceremony. They had a floating platform ready, covered in glowing flowers. They had a song of mourning prepared. Taiyang looked at the magistrate. He bowed just a little. "Thank you for your preparation," he said. His voice was quiet, rough from little use. "We will use our own container. It is our way." The magistrate's fronds flickered, confused. "But we wish to honor him." "You have honored him by receiving him," Taiyang said. He did not smile. He did not frown. His face was a calm lake. "Now we will take him home." The transfer was silent. Taiyang and his people moved with slow, careful steps. They lifted Jinsu's body from the Vix the Lear platform and placed it in the gray box. They closed the lid. The sound of the seal was a soft click. It was the loudest sound in the room. Taiyang turned to leave. The magistrate chimed again, anxious. "Captain, what will?" What will your people do? Taiyang stopped. He looked at the being of light and stone. He looked for a long moment. We will take him home, he repeated. Then he turned and walked back to his ship. His team followed. The gray box floated between them. The Steadfast undocked. It moved away from the station. It did not jump to faster-than-light travel immediately. It moved at normal speed for a full hour, a dark shape against the glowing planet. A final gesture of respect. Or perhaps, some watching thought, a statement. We are leaving slowly. We are watching you as we go. On Earth, the news broke. The screens in every city, in every home, showed the same thing. A picture of Jinsu, a kind-faced man with gentle eyes. The headline was simple. Ambassador Jinsu, killed on diplomatic mission. The galaxy watched Earth. Their sensors listened for the shouts. They waited for the fiery speeches from human leaders. They expected to see the great shipyards around Mars light up with activity. They waited for the thunder of a species wronged. The thunder did not come. Instead, there was silence. The president of the Unified Terran Council made a statement. It was broadcast on all channels. She was an older woman named Ji Yoon. She stood at a simple podium. There were no flags, no soldiers behind her. Ambassador Kim Jin-soo was a servant of peace, she said. Her voice was clear, but it had weight. He was a good man, a loving father, a dedicated diplomat. His loss is a deep wound to our family of nations. We have dispatched a vessel to bring him home. A full investigation is underway. We ask for calm. We ask for patience. We will have more to say when we know more. Thank you. The statement lasted 90 seconds. Then the screen went dark. The human news networks, usually so loud and full of opinion, changed. They did not talk about revenge. They did not talk about war. They showed pictures of Jinsu as a young man. They interviewed his old teacher from university. They played a clip sent by his daughter Mina of him playing a guitar alone in his room. The music was soft and sad. People gathered, not in angry mobs, in quiet vigils. They lit candles in public squares. They placed flowers at diplomatic buildings. There was sadness, a deep public sadness. But there was no shouting. On the galactic networks, the other species were confused. The Graddock, who were being blamed by everyone, roared their frustration. We are innocent. Their messages said, this is a Vix Thalir trick. Can the humans not see? They expected humans to be shouting back. The humans did not shout. The Trelk, a species of traders, found it odd. Their markets did not even tremble, a Trelk analyst noted. No panic. No rush for war materials. Their economy is calm. It is unnatural. The Vix Thalir themselves were most unsettled. They had prepared for anger. They had shields ready for a verbal attack. They had arguments prepared about the dangers of human emotion. They faced nothing. Just that vast, quiet silence from Earth. Weeks passed. The Steadfast arrived at a space station near Pluto. A simple ceremony was held there. Jinsu's body was transferred to a faster ship, the Remembering Jinsu. This ship began the slow journey back to Earth for a proper funeral. Captain Taiyang made his report to the council. He stood in a quiet room. He told them what he saw. The station, the magistrate, the feeling in the air. He gave no opinion. He just stated facts. Ji Yoon listened. She thanked him. She dismissed him. When he was gone, she looked at the others in the room. The heads of security, the head of intelligence, a woman named Hana, who was the chief of something called the Diplomatic Data Office. They are waiting for us to scream, Jian said. Hana nodded. She was a small woman who seemed to disappear into her chair. But her eyes were very sharp. They have a script for us. They expect us to follow it. Attack the Gradic. Look like monsters. Prove their point. And what is our script? Ask the head of security, a man with tired eyes. We do not have one, Jian said. That is the point? We will be silent until we are not. Hannah, can you get what we need? Hannah looked at the table. The ambassador's implant. It will have recorded. It is a passive system. They will not have known to block it. It records everything. Sound, light, energy signatures. Even things we cannot see or hear. But the data is raw. It is a storm of information. It will take time to find the truth in the noise. Take the time, Jion said. We have nothing but time now. And silence. Let the silence build. Let them wonder what it means. So the silence stretched. It became a thing itself. A presence in the galaxy. When diplomats from other species contacted human officials, they were met with polite, brief replies. The investigation continues. Thank you for your concern. It was maddening. It was terrifying. On the Vix Thalir station, the magistrate felt the silence like a pressure. Its frowns were dull. It could not understand. Why were they not angry? What were they planning? The silence was worse than any threat. A threat you can understand? You can prepare for it. Silence could be anything. The assassin, the guard with the red fronds, was given a reward and sent to a quiet post on a moon. The plan had worked perfectly. The humans were quiet. They were broken. They would not be a problem now. The guard did not feel sure. It remembered the human captain's eyes. There was no anger in them. No fear. Just a flat, empty look. Like deep space. The guard found itself thinking about that look more and more. On Earth, in a quiet laboratory orbiting the moon, Hannah and her team worked. They had a digital copy of everything Jinsu's senses recorded in his last hour. They had the walk through the gallery, the view of the nebula, the scrape of a foot, the image of a red-lit frond, the burst of pain. Then black, they sifted through the data. They looked for the hidden things. The things the Vix Thalir did not know were recorded. The low hum that was a scatter-dampening field. The specific energy residue left on Jinsu's clothes, invisible to the eye. The unique sonic signature of a Vix Thalir security sidearm, fired on a setting that left no blast, just a needle of heat. Piece by piece, in the deep human silence, the picture formed. It was not the picture the galaxy expected. And the humans, still silent, held it close. They were not building a case for war. They were building something else. A key for a very specific lock. And they would wait until the perfect moment to turn it. The laboratory did not look like much. It was a clean, white room in a satellite that orbited Earth's moon. There were no windows. The light was a steady, gentle glow from the ceiling. In the center of the room was a large, dark table. Above the table, light projected pictures and numbers that hung in the air. Hannah sat in front of his table. Her eyes were dry and tired. A cup of cold tea sat beside her, forgotten. For 23 days, she had lived in this room. Her team of 12 people worked in shifts, but Hannah stayed. She slept in a small cot in the corner. She ate food brought to her. She rarely spoke. On the table, in the light, was the last hour of Ambassador Jinsu's life. It was not a video. It was something more and less. The neural implant in Jinsu's head was not a camera. It was a recorder of experience. It saved everything his senses noticed. But it saved it all at once, like 1,000 different songs playing over each other. Hannah's job was to pull the songs apart, to listen to each one alone. The main song was what Jinsu saw, the view of the nebula, the pink and purple light. This was clear. Then the dark shape of the Vix Thalir guard stepping out. The sharp, stiff fronds glowing red. The thrust of the limb. Then the ceiling, and the nebula light getting fuzzy. And then black dot. But underneath that song were other songs. One song was sound. Not just the sound of the guard's steps. There were sounds too low for Jinsu to hear with his ears. His implant heard them. Hana isolated this song. She played it. It was a deep hum, like a giant machine sleeping. Then a click. A very precise ultrasonic click. The click happened 2 seconds before the guard stepped out. Hana marked the click. She gave it to a specialist, a young man named Day. Day worked with sounds. He searched through a library of Vix Thalir signals. He looked for a match. Another song was the energy field. The implant felt the tiny forces in the air. In the gallery, there was a normal energy field. The station's power. Then, just before the click, a new field appeared. It was a dampening field. It was designed to confuse scanners and recording devices. It was a curtain, pulled shut to hide a crime. Hana's fingers moved in the air, touching the light pictures. She pulled another song forward. This was the thermal record. The heat of things. The guard's body was a cool blue-green. Its weapon limb was a bright, sharp line of yellow at the tip. When it touched Jinsu's chest, there was a flash of white. Intense heat in a tiny point. Not an energy blast from a gun. A focused thermal lance. Something that burned a hole without making a sound. She looked at the data from the hole in Jinsu's suit and body. The edges were crystallized, sealed by intense heat. Only a few weapons did that. She sent a query to the weapons database. Day raised his hand from across the room. "I have it," he said, his voice rough from not talking. The click. It's a command signal. A Vix Thalir internal code. It is the code to temporarily disable a specific security scanner. The one that watched that part of the gallery. Who can send that code? Hana asked, her voice quiet. High-level security personnel. Or someone with their command device. Hana nodded. She went back to her work. The weapons database returned an answer. The thermal pattern matched a Vix Thalir security sidearm. Model X7. It was a weapon carried only by their internal guard. It was not sold. It was not given to others. The Graddock did not have this weapon. They could not fake its mark. Piece by piece, the songs came together. They told a different story from the one in the news. Hana called for a visual reconstruction. The computer used all the songs to build a model. The model showed the gallery. It showed Jinsu standing there. It showed, in clear detail, the guard stepping out. The red fronds. The weapon limb striking. But now, the model also showed invisible things. The dampening field, like a purple bubble around them. The ultrasonic click, a ripple in the air. The specific heat signature of the X7 side arm dot. Then the model showed the guard, placing the Graddock dagger in Jinsu's hand. The dagger was cold. It had no energy signature. It had been brought in from somewhere else. They wanted us to see the dagger first, Hana said to herself. They wanted us to be angry at the Graddock. She took a deep breath. She had the truth. But it was a quiet, technical truth. It was numbers and waves and energy readings. She needed one more thing. She needed to know who gave the order. She went back to the sound song. She listened to everything from Jinsu's walk to the gallery. She heard his soft footsteps. She heard his breathing. She heard the distant chime of the station. And then, very faint, she heard voices. They were not in the gallery. They were far away. But Jinsu had passed a vent in the hallway. The implant had picked up the vibration of voices through the metal. They were Vix Thalir voices, chiming. The implant had recorded the sound, But Jinsu had not noticed it. Hana isolated this tiny, fuzzy sound. She cleaned it. She made it clearer. She played it. Two Vix Thalir were talking. Their chiming was quick and sharp. Angry. The human is too persuasive. The magistrate listens. The consortium will agree to the trade if he keeps talking. The isolationists will not allow it. We cannot have humans so close. Their energy is chaotic. It will disrupt our harmony. Then he must be removed. But it must not point to us. The Graddock are perfect. Their recent threats give us the excuse. We will use the X7. We will leave their dagger. The humans will be furious. They will attack the Graddock. The consortium will see the humans are violent. They will be banned. Problem solved. The guard? It is reliable. It is loyal to the old ways. It believes in purity. It will do its duty. The conversation ended. Hannah felt cold. It was so clear. It was not a Graddock plot. It was an inside job. A faction within the Vix Thalir government itself had killed Jinsu. They had killed him to keep humans away. They had framed an enemy to start a war. She had it all. The weapon. The method. The motive. The conversation. She stood up. Her legs were stiff. She walked to a communication panel on the wall. She pressed a button. The face of President Ji-eun appeared on the screen. The president was in a simple office. She looked tired, but her eyes were alert. Madam President, Hannah said, we have completed the analysis. We have the truth. It is definitive. Ji-eun was silent for a moment. Tell me, Hannah told her. She explained about the click, the dampening field, the X7 sidearm, the thermal signature. She saved the conversation for last. She played the cleaned-up audio. The chiming voices filled the quiet room. When it was finished, Ji-eun closed her eyes for a second. Then she opened them. So, it was not an act of war by an enemy. It was a political murder by a host. To manipulate us. Yes, Hannah said, and we have proof that would stand in any court. Even their own. Yes, the data is objective. It comes from their own station, their own weapon, their own voices. Ji-eun nodded slowly. Good. Send everything to me. Then get some rest, Hannah. You have done a great service for him. For all of us. The call ended. Hannah sent the data package. Then she walked back to her cot. She lay down. She stared at the white ceiling. She did not feel victory. She felt a heavy sadness. Jinsu had died for a small, cruel reason. He had died because some people were afraid of what he represented. On Earth, Ji-eun called a meeting of the inner council. They watched the reconstruction. They listened to the voices. There was no anger in the room. There was a cold, hard calm. We have the proof, the security head said. We should broadcast it to the whole galaxy. Show everyone what they did. Ji-eun shook her head. No, if we shout it, they will call it a fake. A human trick. They will say we made it to cover our own plans. The species that expect us to be loud will not believe a loud truth. Then what? Asked another council member. We use their own system, Ji-eun said. We do not act like a wounded animal. We act like a member of the community. We take our evidence to the Galactic Commons. We request a formal hearing. We demand justice under their laws. The room was quiet as they thought about it. It was not a human way. It was a slower way. A quieter way. It is what Jinsu would have done. Someone said softly. Ji-eun nodded. Yes, it is. So we will do it. We will be patient a little longer. We will let the silence hold. And then we will speak. Not with a roar, but with a statement of fact. Let the galaxy see that our strength is not in our fire, but in our resolve. Let them see that we can play by rules they thought were only for show. The orders were given. The data was locked away. The human silence continued. But now it was a different silence. It was not the silence of grief or shock. It was the silence of a hand holding a key, waiting for the right door to appear. On Earth, and in the quiet lab near the moon, they waited. The next move would not be an attack. It would be a filing of paperwork. And that, they knew, would be the most surprising thing of all. The great chamber of the Galactic Commons was a circle of light and sound. Representatives from 100 species filled the tiers of seats that rose like petals around a central floor. The air buzzed with the clicks, chimes, and whispers of different languages. Light from a simulated star shone from above, making the polished stone floor gleam. Everyone was waiting for the humans. For weeks, the galaxy had watched the silent humans. The story was simple in everyone's mind. The human diplomat was dead. The Gradic dagger was found. The humans were quiet because they were broken, or because they were planning a terrible, direct revenge. Many thought the human ambassador would not even show up to this meeting. Or if she did, she would be surrounded by soldiers, ready to declare war. The main doors opened. A hush fell over the chamber. All eyes turned. Ambassador Yuna walked in. She was alone. She wore a simple, dark gray suit, similar to the one Jinsu had worn. Her hair was tied back neatly. Her face was calm. She carried nothing in her hands. No weapons. No flashing displays. Just a small, clear data chip between two fingers. She walked to the central podium. Her footsteps were soft but clear on the quiet floor. The silence in the chamber was now complete. It was a heavy, listening silence. The senior arbiter, a being from an ancient species that looked like a floating cluster of crystals, pulsed with a soft blue light. The Galactic Commons recognizes the Terran representative. You may speak. Yuna bowed her head slightly. Thank you, senior arbiter. I am here to speak about the murder of Ambassador Qin Jinsu. Her voice was not loud. It did not shake with emotion. It was clear and firm, like water over stone. It filled the chamber without effort. We have heard many theories in these past weeks, she said. We have heard whispers and accusations. My people have been silent. We were not idle. We were gathering facts. Now we have them. She held up the data chip. This contains a full forensic analysis of the crime scene on the Vix Thalir station. It is compiled from the passive security recordings of Ambassador Jinsu's diplomatic implant. We submit this evidence to the Commons for review. A ripple of surprise went through the room. Passive implant? No one had spoken of this. On the Vix Thalir tier, the magistrate's fronds stiffened. Their gentle colors flickered. Uncertain .yuna continued. The evidence establishes the following facts. Beyond any doubt, she did not look at the Vix Thalir. She looked at the arbiter, and then slowly around the chamber, meeting the gaze of each species. Fact 1. The weapon used was not a Gradic blade. The blade was placed after death. The actual weapon was a focused thermal lance. The energy signature is a perfect match for a Vix Thalir internal security sidearm, Model X7, a weapon not available to the Gradic. A murmur began. The Gradic delegation, large reptilian beings, let out a low rumbling sound of vindication. Fact 2. A dampening field was activated at the scene prior to the attack. This field is of Vix Thalir design. Its activation code, an ultrasonic signal, was issued from a command device registered to the Vix Thalir internal security network. The murmur grew louder. Fact 3. This command signal was sent 2 seconds before the attacker emerged. The signal source was traced. Now Yuna turned her head. She looked directly at the Vix Thalir magistrate's second-in-command, a being whose fronds were now a sickly, unmoving yellow. It was sent from your personal device, counselor. The chamber erupted. Shouts, chimes, roars of shock filled the air. The Vixthalier magistrate's fronds were blazing with frantic, conflicting colors, denial, panic, confusion. The senior arbiter pulsed a sharp red light. Order, there will be order. The noise slowly died down. Every being was staring at the Vixthalier. The story of the simple frame-up was collapsing in front of them. Yuna's voice cut through the tension. There is more. Fact 4. We recovered ambient audio, picked up by the ambassador's implant as he walked to the gallery. A conversation between two Vixthalier officials. She touched the podium. With the Arbiter's permission, I will play it. The Arbiter pulsed blue. Play the recording. The chiming voices from Hana's lab filled the great chamber. They were clean and clear now. The words were undeniable. The plan to kill the human to provoke a war, to frame the Graddock, to preserve isolation. The voices were identified by vocal signature. One was the second in command. The other was the head of the internal security faction. When the recording ended, the silence was absolute. It was a silence of stunned horror. The Vixthalier magistrate seemed to shrink. Its fronds had gone completely dark. It was a sign of utter shame, of system shock. It had been betrayed by its own. It had not known that Yuna finally showed emotion. It was not anger. It was a deep, profound sadness. She looked at the magistrate. You did not know. Our data shows your communications were blocked on this matter. You were used by the isolationists in your own government. You are a victim of this deceit as well. Then she turned back to the Arbiter. Her voice was strong again. We do not come for vengeance. We do not come for war. We come for justice. We accuse the Vixthalier isolationist faction and the specific individuals named in our data of premeditated political murder and conspiracy to incite interstellar war. We submit this to the Court of Interspecies Accord. We demand a trial under Galactic Commons Law, Article 7. She placed the data chip into the podium's reader. A light blinked, accepting it. For a long moment, no one spoke. The shock in the room was a physical thing. The humans had not brought a fleet. They had brought a data chip. They had not screened for blood. They had recited facts. They had not declared war on a species. They had accused specific criminals and demanded a trial. They had used the galaxy's own rules, rules many species considered slow and weak. As their weapon, the Graddock representative was the first to break the silence. It stood, a hulking figure. The Graddock hegemony supports the Terran submission. We demand justice for this attempt to blame us for this crime. One by one, other species joined. Their voices were not shouts of war, but calls for procedure, for law. The tide turned not with violence, but with agreement. The Vixthalier magistrate finally found its voice. It chimed, the sound weak and broken. The Vixthalier. We submit to the judgment of the court. We will cooperate fully. The guilty within our ranks will be surrendered. We offer our deepest, our most profound. Its lights flickered out. It could not finish. The senior arbiter pulsed a solemn blue. The evidence is received. The accusation is noted. The Court of Interspecies Accord will convene. The individuals named are hereby stripped of diplomatic protection. Justice will be sought. It was over. Yuna bowed again. She turned and walked back across the gleaming floor. The chamber was still quiet, but now the quiet was different. It was the quiet of respect and of deep, unsettling thought. As she reached the doors, she stopped. She looked back at the room full of stars. Her message was delivered. The human response was now clear for all to see. They were not the chaotic children the galaxy feared. They were something new. They were patient. They were thorough. And they understood the power of law better than the law's own creators. She walked out, leaving the stars to think about what true strength looked like. It did not look like fire. It looked like a quiet woman with a data chip who had just changed the galaxy without firing a single shot. The trial was not like human trials. There were no loud arguments in a crowded room. It happened mostly in silence, in secure data networks. The Court of Interspecies Accord reviewed the evidence. The Vix-Thalir government, desperate to save itself, helped. They gave more data. They confirmed the human findings. They surrendered the guard with the red fronds. They surrendered the second in command. They surrendered the security chief, whose voice was on the recording. There was no fight. The evidence was a wall they could not climb over. The truth was too clear. The court's judgment was swift. The 3 Vix-Thalir were found guilty of political murder and conspiracy. They were sentenced to permanent isolation on a barren asteroid, their communication with the galaxy cut forever. It was a living death for social beings like them. The Vix-Thalir government itself was given a heavy punishment. They had to pay a large sum to Jinsu's family. They had to pay a larger sum to the Earth government. They had to open their stations to random checks by the Galactic Commons for 10 cycles. Their reputation was broken. They were no longer seen as wise elders. They were seen as flawed and dangerous. But the story did not end with the court's words. The real end happened in the minds of everyone else. On Earth, Jinsu was buried. It was a quiet ceremony by the sea, as he had wanted. His daughter, Mina, stood with her mother. They cried, but they also smiled at stories told about him. The world watched and felt a quiet pride mixed with the sadness. They had not added more death to his death. They had given him a different kind of honor. In the galaxy, things began to change. The change was slow, like a ship turning a new course. The Gradek, who had been ready for war with humans, sent a new message. It was not a diplomatic note. It was a request. They asked for human engineers to visit. They wanted to understand the quantum forge, the thing Jinsu had died trying to share. They said, "You used reason as a weapon. We wish to use reason as a tool. With you." Other species, smaller ones who were often pushed around by older powers, looked at Earth with new eyes. They sent quiet messages. They asked for trade talks. They asked for protection treaties. They were not afraid of human anger anymore. They were interested in human patience. They had seen that humans could be trusted to keep their word, even when hurt. The story of the human response became a lesson. It was studied in diplomatic schools on 1,000 worlds. Teachers would ask, "What is true power?" And the students would discuss the humans. They did not win by having the biggest guns. They won by having the clearest facts. They did not attack the body. They attacked the story. And they used the enemy's own rules to do it. On the Vix-Thalir station, the Garden of Harmonious Shadow was empty. The magistrate was gone, removed in shame by its own people. A new leader was trying to rebuild. One day, a human ship docked. It was not the Steadfast. It was a small, fast courier ship. Captain Taiyang walked out. He went to the gallery where Jinsu died. He stood there for a long time, looking at the nebula. Then he placed a single smooth stone from Earth's ocean on the floor where Jinsu had fallen. It was a simple, solid thing in the middle of all the glowing crystal. He turned to leave. A young Vix-Thalir attendant, its fronds a nervous pale green, chimed softly at him. Do you hate us?" Taiyang stopped. He looked at the young being. He saw not an enemy, but a person who was afraid. "No," he said. "Hate is a fire. It burns the one who holds it. We do not have time for fires. We have bridges to build." He left. The young Vix-Thalir looked at the ordinary stone on the glorious floor. It did not belong, but it was there. A permanent, quiet mark. Years later, a monument was built on Earth. It was not a statue of a soldier or a warship. It was a simple, open arch made of gray stone. In the center was a pillar of light. On the pillar, in many languages, were the facts of Jinsu's death, the weapon used, the people responsible, the law that convicted them. And below the facts, just one sentence. We chose to remember, not to rage. Ambassador Yuna, now older, often visited. She would bring Mina, who was now a young woman studying law. They would stand under the arch. They thought we would show them our teeth, Yuna said one day, holding Mina's hand. Instead, we showed them our memory, our patience. It scared them more than any weapon. Mina looked at the pillar of light. He would have liked this. He always said the strongest argument is the one you don't have to shout. In the Galactic Commons, humans were no longer given seats at the far edge. They were asked to sit closer to the center. Their opinions were listened to, not because others feared an attack, but because they respected the result. When humans spoke, they spoke softly. They backed their words with data. They had learned that a whisper with truth behind it is louder than a scream with nothing. The stars were, as the title said, left in shock. But the shock faded into a new understanding. The galaxy had learned a dangerous, wonderful truth. The most terrifying force in the cosmos is not mindless violence. It is intelligent restraint. It is a species that can be wronged, and instead of lashing out, can simply wait and think, and then with perfect, quiet precision, dismantle the wrong. They had not just solved the murder. They had changed the game. And as Mina turned from her father's monument, looking up at the stars beginning to twinkle in the evening sky, she felt it. The silence around Earth was no longer the silence of grief. It was the silence of a watchful eye, a calm, patient presence in the dark. And the galaxy, once shocked, had learned to listen to it.